Really? The busybody EU are at it again, interfering with the sovereignty and democracy of this great country by attempting to tie future UK governments in with their trade policies, otherwise face financial penalties if we deviate. So basically, the EU want to include a termination clause, or what many EU diplomats have referred to as a Farage clause, into their Brexit reset negotiations, tying the hands of a potential Reform UK government if they were to be successful in the next general election, as the polls suggest. And, of course, our weak leader, Sir KEIR Starmer, will probably agree to it. Nigel Farage was not happy. He wrote this on X. "No parliament may bind its successor, and we will not honour any clause. If Starmer signs this, it's a democratic outrage." Now, the deal is that if either side wanted out, then that side would have to pay significant financial compensation. According to a draft negotiating text, the clause would apply to a proposed veterinary agreement aimed at slashing Brexit red tape for British food and drink exporters. Oh, this sounds like it's almost fair.
Good day, fellow connoisseurs of political chaos and high-stakes drama. Welcome back to the British Report, where we peel back the layers of Westminster's latest blunders. Today we are witnessing a showdown of epic proportions. Imagine a boxing ring. In one corner we have the Prime Minister, Sir KEIR Starmer, looking a bit like a man who brought a spreadsheet to a knife fight. In the other we have Nigel Farage, the political equivalent of a hand grenade with the pin pulled out, currently lobbing verbal explosives at the government's defence strategy. Farage hasn't just criticised the Prime Minister, he has effectively dismantled him on live television, claiming that under Labour's watch, Great Britain has shrunk from a global lion to a military pygmy. And with the world currently looking like a powder keg in a fireworks factory, that is a comparison that set off a massive political firestorm. Quick favour, if you're loving this, hit that subscribe button. Over 92% of viewers haven't yet. It's free, takes a second and means the world to us. Thanks if you did. Now back to the show. Now, why is Farage so worked up? Well, it turns out there is a rather massive, gaping hole in our national pockets. Last week, the UK's top military chief, Air Chief Marshal Sir Richard Knighton, reportedly dropped a bombshell on Number 10. He warned the Prime Minister that the Ministry of Defence is facing a staggering £28 billion shortfall between now and 2030. Yes, you heard that correctly. 28 billion. That is not just a rounding error. That is the kind of black hole that makes light bend. Farage, never one to miss a chance to twist the knife, has labelled Starmer's approach to defence as spineless. He argues that while the government talks a big game about national security, the reality is that our cupboards are bare. Think of it like this. It is as if the government has promised to host a world-class banquet, but has only provided one pack of digestive biscuits and a lukewarm kettle. We are talking about a world where Russia is pummeling Ukraine, Iran is on the verge of a domestic meltdown, and Donald Trump is quite literally threatening to buy Greenland or start a war over it. Amidst all this, Farage claims we are standing on the international stage in our metaphorical underpants, the £28 billion black hole, a military mirage. The suspense in the Ministry of Defence right now must be thick enough to cut with a bayonet. Sir Richard Knighton's warning suggests that our current military ambitions are completely decoupled from our bank balance. It is a classic say-do gap. The government says we are a global power, but the bank account says we can barely afford to keep the lights on at the barracks. Farage pointed out that while China is busy infiltrating every digital nook and cranny and Russian submarines are playing hide-and-seek in our territorial waters, we are essentially penny-pinching on the very tools meant to keep us safe. The Prime Minister and Chancellor Rachel Reeves have tried to play the long game, promising to raise defence spending to 3% of GDP, eventually, specifically by 2035. Farage's response? A resounding pardon. A decade from now is basically a lifetime in modern geopolitics. It is like telling someone whose house is currently on fire that you have got a fantastic deal on a fire extinguisher delivery scheduled for next Tuesday. Farage's "get a move on pronto" isn't just a catchy soundbite, it's a reflection of a growing anxiety that the UK is being left behind in a world that has traded diplomacy for transactional hard power.
KEIR Starmer is betraying the British people with his latest backdoor reveal of Brexit. The most unpopular Prime Minister in history is negotiating, get this, a Nigel Farage clause with his globalist EU masters, a plan designed to tie Britain to the beleaguered and dying European Union when the Labour Party inevitably lose the next election.
We've already taken steps on food and agriculture to align with the single market. That's the sovereign decision that we have taken. I think we should get closer.
Well, as part of the PM's EU reset, the European Union is demanding that if a future British government dares to scrap their veterinary deal, one that could force us to align with every new EU rule on food, animals and plants, no questions asked, that we must pay a massive financial compensation to them, billions potentially, to cover their costs. And why? Because they're terrified of Nigel Farage and Reform UK winning power and tearing up this Brexit betrayal that's going on right now. The fact they even call it the Farage clause seems a blatant admission to me that they are trying to interfere in our democracy. It's designed to bind future parliaments and financially punish voters who want Britain to be free of them again.
Global chaos from Tehran to the tundra. But let us look at the stage where this drama is unfolding. Things are getting incredibly messy, incredibly fast. In Iran, the streets are erupting. We are seeing violent protests against the Islamic regime, sparked by soaring inflation and a desperate cry for change. The Iranian government's response? They have dubbed the protesters enemies of God, a charge that carries the death penalty. They have shut down the internet, trying to keep the world in the dark while they ramp up a deadly crackdown. And here is where it gets spicy for the UK. Diplomatic sources are whispering that if President Trump decides to take a more direct approach to topple Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei, the UK could be pulled right into the thick of it. The exiled Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi has already called on the British government to stand with the protesters. It is a massive geopolitical dilemma. Do we stay on the sidelines and watch a regime collapse, or do we follow the Americans into another Middle Eastern entanglement? Farage's point is simple. If we are going to be a player on this stage, we need to have the kit to back it up. We cannot be a pygmy when the giants are starting to throw punches. Trump, tankers and tactical raids. Speaking of punches, Donald Trump has been remarkably busy lately. While Starmer is busy checking the mod sofa cushions for spare change, the US president has been conducting what can only be described as real-world action movies. Just last week, US Special Forces conducted a daring raid to capture Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro and flew him to New York to face charges. It was bold, it was controversial, and it sent a very clear message. The American police are back on the beat and they aren't waiting for permission. But the American activity isn't just happening in South America, it is happening right here in the UK. Since the start of the year, American military presence at RAF Mildenhall and RAF Fairford has ramped up significantly. We have seen transport planes carrying helicopters from the legendary 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, the Night Stalkers. And just days ago, US aircraft flew from British bases to intercept the ghost Russian tanker, Bella 1. This ship was accused of breaking sanctions to move Iranian oil.
Never before have I seen one name so dominate a conference, and the remarkable thing is it's somebody that isn't even a member of the Labour Party. Yes, it's me, Nigel Farage, and I thought the Mac cartoon on the front of today's Telegraph summed the whole thing up rather beautifully. The sketch was two delegates leaving the Labour Party conference, one saying to the other, next year we're going to the Reform conference because they don't talk about Nigel Farage all the time. It has been obsessive, whether it's the Home Secretary, whether it's the Health Secretary. It is a constant attack on me and what I stand for and what we as Reform UK, a party that has led the opinion polls now for over 100 polls. It's an attack on everything that we stand for and believe in. What I've learnt this week is that the government are incapable of beating us on our arguments. And as a result, the Prime Minister has decided to descend into the gutter and all of his cabinet.
This is where the analogy of not wearing any trunks really hits home. Air Marshal Stringer, in a report for Policy Exchange, noted that the UK military has been relying on the Americans to provide the heavy lifting for so long that we have forgotten how to stand on our own 2 feet. He said the tide has gone out and the UK's hollowed-out capacity is now visible for everyone to see. We are providing the bases, sure, but are we providing the power? Farage argues that Starmer's refusal to bridge the funding gap immediately is leaving us as nothing more than a convenient parking lot for the US Air Force. The Westminster counterpunch, puppets and record levels. Of course, number 10 isn't just taking these hits lying down. A source from Downing Street struck back, calling Nigel Farage Putin's puppet. Their argument? Farage is undermining the UK's position on Ukraine by suggesting we aren't ready for boots on the ground if a ceasefire is called. The government insists they are delivering the biggest boost to defence spending since the Cold War, £270 billion over this parliament. It is a classic political he said, she said. Starmer claims he is fixing the foundations while Farage claims the house is about to fall down. The government argues that by committing to a 2.5% target by 2027 and aiming for 3% later, they are being fiscally responsible. But in a world where Trump is threatening to annex Greenland and Iranian protesters are being executed, fiscally responsible can often look a lot like dangerously unprepared. The real suspense lies in what happens next. With the defence investment plan delayed until March because the Prime Minister was reportedly deeply unhappy with the financial assessment, the internal tension is palpable. Will they find the money to plug the £28 billion hole, or will they have to start cutting big-ticket items like the troubled Ajax armoured vehicle programme? If the UK is to avoid being the military pygmy Farage describes, Starmer needs to find a way to match his rhetoric with actual cold, hard cash, and he needs to do it before the global powder keg finally explodes. Thank you for watching.